All right. How y'all doing today? Social workers of Alabama, it is so good to talk with you today. We've got some things that I would like to share today about what we've talked about in supervision this week in supervision. Um, I've just been touching on some of the things, and the topic that we're going to be covering is emotionally unavailable parents and the impact and trauma that they place on their kids. This is a serious deal, and interestingly enough, when I talked about this subject, there were so many of my supervisees that were saying that they were currently experiencing, there was at least one in each group, I believe, that said that they were experiencing a like situation with their client, right? And so we're going to talk about it today. How do what is the cause for, why are the kids being treated this way? What's the impact? And then we want to cover a little bit about what the cause is as well. What's causing the parent to respond in this way? And it's important to understand that as well. But there's a lot of harm that ends up emerging as a result of these circumstances. Well, I want to talk about that today with you and what you do about it. And we've got some short video to share on that. And we're going to dive into it. But just before we do, I want to share with you real quick. I want to share my screen if I can. What we have now, you all missed a great training. Well, hopefully you didn't miss it. If you did, stay tuned for the next one of our free live training. But we had an awesome training by Christina Lilly, and she talked about how individuals cope with losing a pet. And this was a very dynamic training. But we have some other training on the way. We're taking a break off for the summer for July, I believe, on the free training. We will be resuming, should be in August, and we will put the information out as it comes about. But we do have a training coming up next month, in our supervisor training in July on the 29th and the 30th. So you all come check us out. We've got people signing up, and we want to get you ready to become a supervisor. And to one way to do your own thing. If you haven't moved all the way into private practice, this is a good start. This is how I started. All right, and then we haven't scheduled the next DSM-5 training, which should be I believe in August as well. I believe. And so we're still putting the finishing pieces on that. And so we do have an online on demand training that you can get for those required LICSW hours that's needed for in the DSM area of DSM. Okay, so let's move on to what we have to talk about today. Let me tell you, it's not always fun creating, but then once it's been created, man, it's just an awesome thing being able to share what you have with the group. Okay, and so let's get into it emotionally. Let me see if I can share my screen here and put y'all in. And so we started off with a few test questions that we try to a lot of times I'll try to make these test questions very relative, or I'm sharing the wrong screen. I try to make them relative um to what we're going to talk about. And so, but sometimes I just give them random test questions as well. So you have to decide what's going to be your approach. If you decide to use test questions, and ChatGPT can help you out with that if you're not able to make them up on your own. And even if you are, it'll tighten it up for you a lot of times. So one of the questions that we asked first was, which of the following best describes the concept of parentification? Now, we included this in our discussion. Everybody's not familiar with parentification. If you are, then you'll know the answer. A child learning to feel helpless and dependent on others for all needs. B, a child taking on adult responsibilities and roles typically filled by a parent. C, a child developing skills to manage their own emotions independently. And D, a child feeling anxious and overwhelmed by school-related tasks. And I believe the answer for that was a child developing skills to manage their own emotions independently. A child take is B. I took the answer off. A child taking on adult responsibilities, and in my belief, parentification can be done in a number of ways. It's not always, in my opinion, or the way that I take it, just that they're physically taking on roles. What about if they have to take on the emotional responsibilities or roles that a parent is supposed to provide, and they become the emotional caretaker, not just for maybe their siblings, but also for themselves? Would that be parentification as well? Maybe so. All right. And so we talked a little bit about that. Want to continue here. We gave a vignette. We're not going to go over this whole vignette here, but we created the vignette, gave a multiple choice about a person, basically Jaden. He had an alcoholic father who was very disinterested in him. And I try to piggyback on things that we've already talked about, like Will Smith had an alcoholic father. What does that look like? So it gets ingrained. Repetition deepens the impression. And so here it is. But this is the thing. What is the impact of having that alcoholic parent in a situation to where the father's approval and affection was not given, and he was met with disinterest and harsh judgment? And what it talks about is, after, Jaden continues to try to reach out to dad to get that emotional affection, he keeps being rejected. And his father seems disinterested, and he criticizes him, he ignores him. And so after a while, Jaden stops trying because he feels that his efforts are worthless. They're few. They're not sizing up. So why don't I stop reaching out to dad to try to get from him the emotional connection and attachment that I need, and maybe I'll just try to pay attention to what he wants. And that's an interesting thing I wanted to make a point about. I've been noticing with a number of my clients, and you all may experience this, is that many times there is a shift. There's a shift with clients many times. When the parent is not interested or shows a lack of interest in the emotional well-being of that child, or even the physical well-being of that child, or when there's been abuse and things like that. And what I've seen when and we're going to get into, I don't know if y'all heard of still face experiment. What does a still face parent look like in real life? We're going to show a video of that real quick. It's pretty powerful display of what a still face looks like in real time, right? And so the shift is the child, many times when the needs are not met, they shift from what do I need and trying to get my needs met to how do I get your attention? That's the shift, in my opinion. What do I need? I mean, it shifts from what I need. So I need the love and affection. I'm trying to get that from the parent. And when that's not given, then it shifts over time to how do I get your attention? Not for every child, but for many. And this is how we end up like Jaden. All right, so let's skip on down. Here's a video that I showed in one or two of the groups. And I want to share this one because it kind of breaks this down. The still face experiment. I think it's important for the client, for the supervisees to know about this, and it's possible that it can appear on their exam as well. And so it's just helpful in a lot of ways. Let's see if we can pull that up. Let's see if we can pull that up. This video, and it's very compelling. It's kind of sad, and for some of y'all may not be familiar with the still face experiment, and so you'll learn what that is all about if I can figure out where to share it. And then one day I'm going to get some tech support, and they're going to be here to help me. But give me just a second. Under pressure. Here we go. Boom. All right, this is a good video. And then I got another video to show you about what a still face parent really looks like in real time.
Parents who are stressed have been shown not to be able to be as attuned to their infants and children as parents who are not stressed. Not their fault. Not because they don't love the child. Not because they're not dedicated, devoted, committed. Simply because the stress effect impedes their ability.
This is so important. He's saying that, so we don't want to shift the blame to the parent. The parent did cause the harm. They did cause the trauma, but it's not because they didn't care. It wasn't because they were truly disinterested. It was many times because they have experienced their own trauma. So when we have these clients that come in and they're distressed and they don't have that connection and they don't know how to talk about their problems, and then we look at the parents with a still face, we need to think about and empathize that maybe they just didn't know how to cope. All right, let me go.
Not because they're not dedicated, devoted, committed, simply because the stress effect impedes their ability not to love their child, but to attune with their child. So that mutual responsiveness is interfered with. And that has an impact on brain development. There's an important chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is essential for motivation and attention. Now you take infant monkeys and you measure their dopamine levels in the front part of the brain, and you find it to be normal. Separated from the mothers, those dopamine levels have diminished. In other words, the child's brain chemistry is affected by the unavailability of the mother. And this is true even if the mother is physically there, but emotionally absent.
Imagine two tuning forks, like in this very famous still face experiment. The mother is one tuning fork, and it starts vibrating. And the baby's tuning fork begins to vibrate in unison with hers. And when that happens, gradually its own prefrontal cortex gets tuned. So it becomes empathic. It begins to relate to the mother.
Infants don't understand words. So they respond to body language. So is my mother rigid?
Right there, right there, right there. What does this look like in real time with an adult? Right here, the mom is still faced. The child is running out of solutions to try to get the mother's attention. Now the child is trying to point to things that the parent that they normally would point at and the parent would respond to. But so what does that look like in real time with an adult? We don't have time to get into that, but that's an important point. That's where we get in sometimes to the people pleasing and things of that nature. All right, codependency, even acting out, the narcissistic traits is also the same thing, a response to not being responded to.
Is she afraid? Because if she's afraid, I am, because she's my protector. If she's afraid, who's going to protect me? The size of the mother's pupils, the mother's voice. Is it confident and relaxed, or is it tense? These are not conscious thoughts, but this is the infant's experience.
Depressed mothers, or even worse, schizophrenic mothers, they are not in synchrony. The baby is getting the message that there's something wrong with it. Its prefrontal cortex is not going to be tuned properly. So that baby is going to develop a kind of depressive personality.
Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh.
The monkeys tell us more about the severe effects of infant deprivation. The ones that were reared in isolation just don't behave normally when they're finally given a playmate. They rarely touch, and when they do, the contact's surprisingly vicious.
Children who are emotionally inhibited will become dysfunctional adults. They will have difficulty learning and will be more hostile. And that starts right in the womb.
Right in the womb, in utero. All right, so a lot happens as a result of the still face. As they spoke about learning issues, so that's where a lot of times we have learning disabilities. Children become hostile, problematic in the school, and then as adults, they move on to have these problematic behaviors and not able to attach in relationships because they have not been given what is needed. Okay, and so let us transition. I want to show one other quick video if I can find out where I have it. And this one's going to be tough to show, but we're going to attempt to do it anyway. And let me see if I could just copy and paste. And so I'm going to go in and share. Let's go on and share the screen here because this one is on Instagram. And this, okay. So how it starts, because we missed the first part, is she says that her mother basically that she doesn't listen. And that she draws conclusions or something of that nature. Hopefully we can get it all. All right, I'm gonna share it. And then let's go.
she don't hear.
Okay, give me an example.
Doesn't.
Please. Like, I told her, like, hey, Mom, I got violated and stuff like that in
So
January.
sorry. So sorry.
And she lit a cigarette and was like, okay. And then she didn't say nothing, and I got up and I walked off.
What was going through your mind in that moment?
I was molested when I was younger. This is a triggering conversation for me. One thing I will not do is sit here and be ridiculed by my own child who knows I will go to the ends of the earth for you. You know it.
Mama,
no,
I didn't
listen.
say no.
You didn't say your piece. Now listen to me. And the reasons why I didn't say nothing, because you know this already. If you felt like you needed more help, I'm not the one to help you with it, because I ain't done with my own healing. And you know this. This is not something I hear from you. So if you needed that healing, what you should have did was got yourself some doggone professional help, or reached out to me and said, I need professional help. So how the hell am I supposed to help you if I can't help myself?
Mama listens, but she don't hear.
Okay, give me an example.
Please.
Wow. Whew. That's tough right there. And so she says that mom listens and does not hear. I hope this is not gonna cut off. She listens and does not hear, and what you could see is you know, if you know, it's a lot. I don't know what you get from this, but there's a lot going on here. If you could see, she even took a deep breath to get it out because she knows the response that she's gonna get. Look at mom. Look at mom. Look. Y'all see that? Mom is dazed. She's phased out. So, in my opinion, see, this is the workings of how learned helplessness begins, how this child was probably nurtured into it as a small child and now moving into adulthood. Like you could see it wasn't even no big emotional response from her. This is why a lot of times when there's abuse, some kids don't even ever come to the table and speak about it in the first place because they predict that this is something that's going to happen. And this is not to point the finger at the parent, because as we speak about the parent, what do you notice about this parent? And just in those micro expressions, she obviously, from her speaking, has had significant levels of trauma. As a matter of fact, it almost looks as, I guarantee you, I'll put money that she dissociates. That glazed look that she had in her face, that she went back, I guarantee you, like it's like she was out for a moment. That this was brought back up, and it's like she went back into her own thing. And the reason why I say that is because how she looked. But then when the daughter talks about, you know what? When I talked to her, she went and got a cigarette or whatever. This is a sign that this is an anxiety-provoking experience. And sometimes it's not just anxiety. We flip from anxiety to anger to even rage. And the rage is not, and the anger and rage wouldn't be towards the child somewhat because you brought this up. Why is it that you keep bringing up that, making me have to go through my traumas? Because every time you bring it up, then it brings trauma up for me. But what happens to that child? The mom obviously hasn't gotten the attention that she needs, but what happens to the child that is experiencing a mom who is not present? You feel what I'm saying? She's basically telling the child, go get help somewhere else. Go somewhere else. Why are you even? I told you not to come to me about that. Go find your. In other words, she's saying, and it will feel like go get your own help. You know what I'm saying? Don't ask me for help, which interprets to, if I ever have any pain or need help or hurting, if I can't come to you about something like this, what can I come to you for when it comes to my emotional support and protection? And how long has this didn't start with the abuse. This mother was checked out, unfortunately, because of her own trauma, her own pain, her need to get support and help herself. And so she hasn't been able to support the child. So what is this child being groomed for? Learning how to check out for herself emotionally, learning how to be in the presence of people who are disinterested in her pain. So who she's likely to be attracted to. You feel me? So this shapes her in a sense to be ready for relationships to where there's a blame shift. So I say that I have a problem with you. You're on your phone and looks like somebody's calling that's not supposed to be calling. And then I shift the blame. How dare you, such and such and such. Or making me feel like I'm crazy, gaslighting. I'm crazy to have emotions. These are some of the things that we talked about and a whole bunch more, and how to work with individuals in these situations, understanding where they come from, what to do about it, right? And so we're going to go on and let off here. We're going to end it here. Hopefully, this has been helpful in helping you to understand aspects of the still face, what the still face looks like in real time, and why the face is still, and then the impact of that still face, which almost creates another still face with the daughter not even seeming to be significantly impacted by the fact that my mom seems to not care about what I need emotionally because she's used to that. It's a programming. All right, that's it for today. We'll take care and we'll see y'all again next week. Peace.